Hello, chat. It's Thursday. Um, I was watching back, so I recorded this. I recorded one yesterday, and then my phone freaked out, and I was going to record like the rest of it because I was like 90% done with it, but I was watching the end of it, and I was like, man, there was like an energy to it, and I don't think I could just go back and like fill in the blank at the very end. So I'm gonna hold the questions I was doing yesterday for tomorrow. So skipping a couple questions. So if you feel like your questions weren't answered and I'm going out of order, I am. Gonna do two today. I'm trying to figure out like what the best way to do them is. Like, there should be like a timing of like me walking around the top of the bowl and the bottom of the bowl. So I'm gonna try to keep my ranting based off walking distance. So we'll see how that helps. Anyway, I do appreciate everyone giving me a bunch of feedback on Yap WAN this past week. The streams have been kind of nice with everyone telling me about it. I do like it, to be honest. It gets my steps in, gets me to talk to y'all in a weird way. It's not chat, but it's close. It's a little kind of like it. I mean, like, what's the difference? Like, hard focus on like one question and rant for 30 minutes, and that's basically like chat. I just ignore the rest of chat while I go on some wild rant, right? Oh my god, it's so windy. Sorry. Anyway. Okay. Two questions today. First one. Someone asked about differences in work-life balance in baseball versus other industries I've been in. And kind of the leading side of this is like, we know that there are parts of the season that are really hard. And we're currently in one, right? Like scheduling around the draft, scheduling around the combine, scheduling around trade deadline. They're all so close to each other and they're very demanding. Or spring training's another one. Oh god, there's a mister. This mister thing. Look at all the water, chat. Oh god. I feel like I'm getting peed on. I'm sure it feels really nice when it's super hot, but right now it just feels odd. So, in terms of work-life balance, and like spring training, of course, it's very demanding. There are some stretches of the year where you don't have days off, right? And this is one of them. I don't have a day off. Actually, I get 2 days off. I get Wednesday and Thursday off next week. Well, I guess not really. I have to fly. So, as much as I guess flying isn't work, but it is for work, so take it as you will. Oh look, there's a barge today, chat. Well, there's always a barge, but look. Lots of different things go on that. Sometimes they're shipping like actual goods. A lot of the time they're just like moving trash. But sometimes it's like textile good, paper mill, wood stuff. a lot of the time it's a trash barge. So anyway, work-life balance is difficult. For two reasons. There are those stretches where you just don't have days off. And for anyone, it's like, oh, you only had 3 days off in the month. That sounds really bad. But there's a lot of people who, get bored and open up their laptop and kind of hack away at something that they're doing at work just because it's a fun problem. That's not just in baseball. It's in any industry. Like, when I was doing neuroscience stuff, like, if I got kind of bored, I'd crack open the iPad and read a paper, or open up MATLAB and, run an extra analysis. Like, it's not that crazy. People do that. I'm sure a lot of people listen to this. If you got a regular job, like, you're probably doing that too. Like, you just are interested in something that you were ending at work. You put in a few more hours after work. It's work, but it's kind of fun. Just being right is fun sometimes. So there's a little of that where, even though you do get the weekends off, sometimes you use part of a day on the weekend to do a little more work. So I don't necessarily think of like me having less days off is all that rare. I think a lot of people who have the actual days off also end up working maybe as much as I do, if not more sometimes. The other one, which I think is a little more real, is the hours. So it's baseball, but it's an office job in the day, and then you watch baseball at night. And depending on your involvement with the team, you might be required to watch baseball at night. So for some of us, we're here at 9. Some people get in really early, like 8 or before 8, and they're here until the game ends. Which, if a game starts at 7:10, you're getting out of here at around 10 p.m. So 14-hour days. And if you travel with the team, that's his own beast, right? So for me personally, I'm not obligated to stay for the games. I do feel like if I'm not at the games, I'm not following the team as closely as I could be. Not just the game, but the things that are happening around the game. Things in the clubhouse, things post-game. So I try to come to the games and be a part of that decision-making group that I'm a part of, and be present and be ready to help make decisions. So it's really the hours, more so than anything, that would be the difference. Like, while people might work on the weekends for whether required or because you choose to, for me, a lot of the time it's required, but some of the time I do choose to. It's the hours that are different, because not everyone has to get into work at 8 and stay until 10 p.m. And in fact, most people don't or can't because of rules, regulations, or literally laws. But in baseball, and in sports in general, that's something you do. So it does disrupt life. Like, I definitely don't go on dates as often as I could. The one hobby I have outside isn't really a hobby, it's a second job in a lot of respect, in terms of content creation and streaming. And I've definitely dropped hobbies that I really love doing. Weightlifting is probably the number one, and like right next to that is probably writing music and playing guitar. So you pick and choose your battles. You find a little free time you can, but you know, you do get paid to be at baseball games. So it's some pluses and minuses for sure. But in terms of this versus other industries, I mean, when I was at KFC, it was a true 9 to 5, and it effectively like kick you out of the office if you were there during like the Friday half day stuff. So for me, I felt like I had a ton of time, but in that ton of time, I did, come up with the idea of Sliced. I started to lift way more. I played a lot more music. So I know what I'd be doing if I did have sort of all that time back. But, and I know what it feels like. It does feel like you have way more of your day available to you, but I've said this before, like there's something to be said about like winning, and at the end of a day when you're working a regular job, like you close the laptop and you go home, but at the end of my day here, like sometimes it ends in fireworks and you go across the street and everyone is happy and you see just a pep in the step from so many people, and you helped contribute to that, and that's pretty cool. And if you do it enough, and you do it at the right times, they give you a parade. So, and a little jewelry, but the parade I want to believe is something you'll never forget, but commemorated by a ring is definitely nice. But, let's not get ahead of ourselves. That's pretty rare. The majority of people who work in this industry will never get one of those. So, you just gotta try hard enough to get one. Let's see. I guess the other side of it is, hold on, they're cleaning the concourse because the game's really early tonight. Hold on one second, Chad. Hold on. I know, it's really loud. Actually, tell me, chat. Let me know in the comments, or let me know in chat, or let me know in the Discord if that was really, really loud. It's really loud for me, but I don't know how good this microphone is in terms of like white noise like that. So that blue concourse cleaner, quite loud. Anyway, so I guess in terms of the comparison, like, do I take one for the other? Do I wish some things were different or not? Even if they were different, and I've heard of other teams and what they do, it just sounds a little, I don't know what my perfect, ideal version of it all is, because like as much as I would love extra nights back, I also am the person asking to go on road trips, which means like when I would be getting some nights back when the team is away and I'm still in Cincinnati, I'm actively volunteering to say I want to be with the team. I just feel like I want to make sure that people absolutely don't need me, but if they might need me, I want to be around, you know? So that's I guess that's my thought on work-life stuff. Regular world, you find fun outside of work, but in this world, work is very fun. So then you just have to decide, well, if work is fun, are you okay with replacing your extracurricular / life stuff with the fun you get from work? And that becomes a little conflicting, right? Because as the old adage goes, and I've been privy to this in the music industry, if you turn your hobbies into your job, then they don't become you start to lose a passion for why they were hobbies in the first place. Luckily, that hasn't necessarily happened with baseball quite yet, and I don't know if it ever will. There are people who it never happens to, but for me, that hasn't happened yet. So anyway, all right, to stick to answering these questions based off different levels I'm walking on, I'll finish by saying I don't necessarily, I mean, there's absolutely stark differences, but would I feel like I'm getting more or getting less if I picked one or the other? No, because I've walked both sides, so I feel like I know what I would be doing if I had way more free time and if this was just a regular job. But I don't necessarily think I need more work-life balance as it is. I feel like I do a lot with what I got. So some people on the outside might look at like how my lifestyle is and think like, I never want to do that, but it's fine. They don't have to live my life. So next question. This one, I don't know where this one's gonna go in my mind, but someone asked about like, when you make like a failed stat, like, even though, like, depending on the level of failure, like, do you continue to maintain it? What do you do with that? So, it's a good question. I'll talk about one that, I'll actually talk about a baseball one. Because I have tons of these, but this is one that I could say, well, you guys will find out the end to the story in a second. So, when I first got in, we had a really bad team. The team was really bad, but it was a little strange. There were some people on the team, some players on the team where, you know, when you're doing bad, when you have a poor team, when your team's struggling, the stadium doesn't get filled out. There's not a lot of people who come to games. But you go on the road and you're playing against teams who are doing really well and they're selling out games. You typically would think like, oh, well, players probably want to play in front of a ton of people and respond way better. Oh yeah, Old Dominion, by the way, is playing tonight. That's why the game is a little earlier tonight. But Old Dominion is in town. So, what was I saying? So my research was like, well, yeah, players are doing better. Some players theoretically should be doing better if they're playing in front of bigger crowds, but it seemed anecdotally that there were some players who didn't do better when that was happening, that they were actually worse playing in front of bigger crowds. So I thought that was strange, and I wanted to look into it. So one thing I wanted to look at was just crowd noise in general, and like what's the effect of crowd noise on player performance. And so that's not a shared data set, but you could approximate crowd noise based off the amount of people in the audience, in the stadium in general, and then typically the loudest that the crowd is usually in the high leverage situations in the game. So you could think like on the very, very most high leverage end of things, if it's like a tied game, bases loaded, like that's going to be very loud. And on the other side, it'd be like, on the lower end of things, it'd be like 2 strikes, 2 outs, 1 more strike and it's an out, and the inning ends. So different types of leverage situations, but typically the ones that are more definitive, game-changing, and really statistically speaking, like win probability shifting. So the closer you get to the end of the game, the closer you get to the end of the game, and the wider the score change gets, or what's the best way to say this? The closer you get to the end of the game, things that were seemingly smaller in the beginning of the game become much larger in terms of swings at the end of the game. So if you score 1 run at the beginning of the game, the win probability added is slightly smaller than if you score 1 run in a tied game at the end of the game, where 1 run might swing the win probability very dramatically. So typically the crowd, whether they know it or not, they respond really, really accurately when it comes to these events. And so my thought is, well, if you have some sort of formula of crowd size, and like audience attendance is something, park attendance is something that's tracked by the league. So you have some proxy of how many people are approximately coming to the park, plus or multiplied by whatever the leverage. And so statistically there's a calculation for leverage, and the higher the leverage, then the larger the win probability swing could be. You should be able to get like some proxy of crowd noise. And if you use that as some sort of factor in, like, you know, will a player, you know, do better in an at-bat, or will a pitcher have a higher or lower strikeout probability, theoretically this should like move the needle, right? So whip it all up, and lo and behold, doesn't move the needle. Complete noise, complete garbage. There is no correlation and no added benefit to using audience attendance and leverage index as some sort of new feature in a event predictive model. So, okay, failed metric, and that's fine. Put in the work, and the metric clearly doesn't correlate with anything. So, what do you do when that metric is completely a trash, garbo thing? Well, you don't just delete it and hide it forever, right? Like, the work is there. And even in the failed work, you still have to say, hey, we looked into this. Doesn't correlate with anything, but we tried. And that's work still. Even if it didn't lead to anything. And because it's work, you never know if someone sees it from a different angle. Maybe it's not the metric you made, but maybe they want to calculate this kind of stuff. Maybe not on the baseball side of things, but maybe they want to do it for business or for ticketing, right? Like, is there a way to monetize some of these factors in a different way, right? So, so even though they're failed for me, they might be useful for a completely different department. But on top of that, even though they're failed for me, that doesn't necessarily mean someone won't come along and want to update it, or the data doesn't get better, and that naturally makes it better, right? So, sorry, very, very loud truck strolling by. So, anyway, it's possible that, you know, years from now, the data improves and someone is interested in these uncontrollable, somewhat intangible factors. And so we'll have research for it. We maintain it. It doesn't do anything. No one wants it in a report. It doesn't help us with decision making, but it does exist. So personally, I haven't even queried that table probably in like 7 or 8 years. I might do that when I get back to my desk right now. So just to see if it's broken. I don't know. So but that's a very real example of something I tried, and even though it didn't work out, we still use it. So, or well, we don't use it at all. We still maintain it. So, in terms of like, if something doesn't correlate, but people who have requested it are sure that there should be something there, there's something to be said about like, well, the data quality isn't there yet, but we could be getting at least the base of something, even though we know it's not going to be good. Once the data is better, insert new data, and theoretically that should make something that was null, hopefully something that is a strong effect in terms of predictability or tendency, something, right? So there's a good amount of that. There's a lot of times where there's a good idea from a coach, from someone on the staff. We try to do it with all the data that we have available to us, and it just correlates with nothing, and they're like, that can't be right because XYZ. And sometimes it's like, well, in terms of the construct of the original problem, you didn't say XYZ, you said ABC. So sometimes we just have to go back, and it's just poor iteration. But a lot of the time it's like, oh yeah, we agreed to XYZ, we looked at XYZ, but the data quality isn't good enough. And that has happened a good amount of times. So we have seen times where, yeah, data quality did get better, insert new data, and we start seeing some real shit. So failed experiments, failed metrics, it still work. And they're not failed, they're just dormant. You know? It's like batting average. It's not a failed stat just because it doesn't have year-to-year correlation, has poor predictability of player success. It's a poor metric for the actual value of a player. That doesn't matter because it's still a good statistic in proxy of other metrics, right? It's like what we were saying about OPS versus WOBA the other day. WOBA is better, it's more accurate, but it's easier to talk about OPS. It just is. So, batting average doesn't have much use case these days outside of, like, you know, trading card, bar conversation fodder. But, and that's not entirely true. There are definitely some use cases for batting average, but for the most part, it's not underappreciated, it's not overappreciated. It is what it is. There are better versions of what it is. So batting average is laying dormant. That's how I would describe it. It exists, and in some point in time, people might find a reason for it. Now, the counterpoint is people have found reasons for it. It exists still, just as a feature of other things that have more richness, more features, more context added to it. So you aren't getting rid of batting average. In fact, you're probably maintaining the form of batting average in many, if not all, things related to a batter, and sometimes related to a pitcher. But batting average on its own, when it used to be like a hallmark statistic, I'd say it's more of a supporting character than it is a lead role these days. All right, chat. I have limited my ability, limited my time. I think I did okay. I want to say I did okay. I circled the bottom, talked about one thing, circled the top, did the other thing. I feel pretty good about it. And we're right on time, 30 minutes. So, and my phone didn't crash, so even better. All right, if I have time, I'll try to do the other one. But I'll put this one up now. All right, chat. Sunday, by the way, on War Room ESPN. So if you're interested in watching fit check for me during the draft, ESPN, first round draft, or first day draft, it's all up there. Might stream this weekend. We'll see. All right, gotta go help the amateur guys help pick the next class of Reds. See y'all.